it's just a strange time. So I'm glad you made some time for me, yeah. And I was able to join the cacao ceremony on IGTV as well.
Amazing. Thank
Yeah.
you.
And I really appreciated it because I'd never done, I've never done a cacao ceremony before, and was intimidated by it. So
Yeah.
I thought you guys made it into like a bite-sized morsel. And I also appreciated that you had said, cacao wasn't usually this easy to come by. So
Yeah. Yeah. Usually it was really interesting doing it with our Four Sigmatic product, because there's such a process, and so much of working with cacao is the time and the intention and the cutting it and boiling it. And, that's even when it gets to our hands. Before that, there's the fermentation and the drying and so much processing. And so it was like, okay, I guess we honor it while we stir it and give it to the earth and the ground. And yeah, tried to make it super simple.
That was really cool. So one of the first questions I wanted to ask you was, why would somebody do a cacao ceremony?
Yeah,
What's the purpose
absolutely.
of it? What's the purpose of a cacao ceremony?
Yeah. So anytime we're engaging with our herbal medicine, which cacao has been used as a really sacred medicine for thousands of years in many cultures around the world, it's really about connection. I think the closer we are to understanding what the plant can offer us, the more tuned in we are to our body, rather than just mindlessly consuming something, we can actually experience what it's doing in our body, right? And so whether we're eating a beet as a vegetable, or, in Four Sigmatic, we use beet as an antioxidant, immune supporting ingredient in our immune shot, right? There's these everyday ingredients that we can either just consume mindlessly and let them do their work in the body, or create this connection. And I think it becomes tenfold what happens when we start paying attention and can actually understand the compounds of these ingredients, how they work within our body, and can really take effect. And yeah, there's just so much magic in that. Yeah, cacao is traditionally known as a heart medicine, and constituent wise, it has more magnesium than almost any other food, which is the cellular relaxer, right? And when we talk about relaxing our nervous system, we often focus on heart health and heart medicine, because there's more nerve endings from our heart to our brain than the other way around. So a lot of times, even with reishi, one of our functional mushrooms for supporting stress and relaxation, it's really known traditionally as a heart tonic.
Okay.
Similar reason.
Wow, great. Well, I was wondering if you could just tell me about your own personal journey into herbalism and how you ended up studying mushrooms.
Yeah, it's been a really organic process. As I like to say, I studied environmental studies in my undergraduate, and it all comes back to this connection with the earth. And there was so much focus in the environmental movement on external factors. How can we focus on population or our food supply, or whether it's energy systems. And I kept coming back to this piece of, how can we show up for the planet if our bodies aren't full? And I experienced that firsthand. I was going through a lot of health issues and sacrificing things to follow certain diets that I thought were best for the planet, being a strict raw vegan. And I was sick and I couldn't show up. And I thought, okay, what can I do in those days that I'm literally bedridden, if I start being flexible and supporting my body, right? This idea that we have to fill up our own cup to be able to overflow and do our work in the world. And so it really came from, okay, how can we all be the best global citizens possible, instead of just focusing externally, really fill up ourselves and become strong. If people are stressed, if we are not sleeping, if we're lacking really critical nutrients to enable our body to have energy, or our mind to function optimally, how can we go out and do anything? And so I ended up moving to Southeast Asia, which has a really deep tradition of herbal medicine. And I lived out there for about 3 years and studied with naturopathic doctors and traditional Ayurvedic doctors in India, and just dove into every option I could to really engage with natural ways of living, and going out and foraging herbs and making teas out of barks. And
Amazing.
so amazing. I mean, it's just still so alive in so much of the world. And it was so inspiring. And um, yeah, realizing where I wanted to live long term. I really believe in using the plants that are around us. So knowing my life was really based in the States, I moved back and went to graduate school for herbal medicine in Boulder, Colorado. And I actually teach now mycology at the school I attended.
Oh, great.
And again, kind of looking for the gaps, just as I looked for that gap of what are we not focusing on environmentally? Oh, this bit of about medicine. You know, there's a lot on nutrition, but if someone gets a headache, we still reach for that NSAID, right? And similarly with the world of herbal medicine, there was very little talk about mycology and functional mushrooms. And living in Asia, that was such a prevalent medicine. And so it really piqued my curiosity there. And I studied really even outside of herb school as much as I could, started growing my own mushrooms and taking courses with teachers around the country to really learn more about the compounds and constituents and just this whole world of functional medicine, functional mushroom medicine. And it was just part of the herbal repertoire at that point. And when I opened my private practice, the clients that were coming to me were the perfect individuals suited for functional mushroom based medicine. It was really interesting. I just opened my practice and was like, whoever's meant to come to me will show up. And I had almost all of my clients were either individuals with autoimmune conditions, people with chronic illness, and frankly, people who said, I've tried every other doctor on the planet and you're my last resort. And so that brought really strange ailments that the Western world didn't have a diagnosis or a label for. And functional mushrooms were one of the only safe, effective options that I could use for this wide range of bodies. So I would create unique individual formulas for each body I was working with, and functional mushrooms were always the kind of magic sauce or the focus of the formulations.
Yeah. Do you, I know you do this a lot, but if you could just go over the main heavy hitting mushrooms that,
Yeah.
you typically focus on today, just to get that foundation out of the way, that would be great. And by the way, I asked my son, I was talking to my son about you, and I said, I think I'm going to ask her what the purpose of mushrooms are. And he's 11. And he said, well, they're decomposers. Yeah. He said, is that correct? Is he
I
right?
love him. He is. Yeah, they're the grand decomposers of the planet. I mean, they have so many purposes, but yeah, they break down everything from moldy cheese in our refrigerator to huge fallen, trees in the middle of the forest. Yeah, they are that kind of connection between life and death, breaking down everything to make way for what's new.
Wow, and he just didn't even hesitate. He said that. He's so cute. Yeah, so the main ones, and I was just, when you are foraging, I was just going to ask, or have you ever heard stories of people who have maybe taken a poisonous mushroom or consumed one? I'm just curious.
I saw that on your sheet and I loved it. I personally have not consumed a poisonous mushroom. My dear friend, he's our founder, Taro, has consumed it's called the False Chanterelle. So chanterelle is a choice edible mushroom, and based on and basic anatomy of a mushroom, right? We have the mycelium underneath, we have the stipe, often referred to as the stem, and then the cap. And underneath the cap, there's often gills, if it's not a polypore. So gills are kind of those blades that run underneath the mushroom. And there is different, the blades are either parallel or branching. And that's one of the identification techniques of a true or a false chanterelle. And false chanterelles are very poisonous. Anyways, long story short, Taro has tried to convince me to eat several poisonous mushrooms with him. He's like, it's okay, we're just gonna open the windows and we culture, how many, how much they can provide for a range of ailments, the amount of constituents that are medicinal, and reishi ranks as the number one species in all of TCM. So it's been used for thousands of years. And at Four Sigmatic, we basically distill these mushrooms into very simple boxes to make it easy to understand when and why to take them. So reishi is our chill mushroom. We recommend reishi for supporting stress response and deep sleep. So taking in the afternoon or evening. We then have chaga, which is the king of mushrooms. And Nodus obliquus, it's actually not a mushroom itself. It's known as a conch or a sclerotium, and it grows off the side of birch trees. It's a parasite to the birch. So just as your son mentioned, this chaga will eventually decompose the birch tree, but that can take up to 15 to 20 years. So it's a perennial mushroom. And this is a really well loved and used mushroom in Finnish culture, which is where Four Sigmatic was founded and born. All of our founders are from Finland, where it's been used as a coffee alternative. I know you know that because you wrote it on our little question sheet. But
yeah, I'm a half New Yorker. I spent almost 2 decades in New York, and I was really surprised to hear that Finnish people drink the most coffee per capita in the world.
Isn't that crazy?
I'm impressed. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, this incredible chaga mushroom, it's known as, the king, or people call it black gold. And when you extract it properly and you're actually using the wild chaga, so that it's been grown on this birch tree, it has, this is debatable, but I believe it has the most antioxidants of any other food on the planet. There's like 1 or 2 close seconds, but teeming with antioxidant properties. And so we call it our kind of defend mushroom, like your body's own superhero or bodyguard, right? This idea when your body is flooded with antioxidant properties, when your immune system is strong, even if there's people coughing all around you, you're not going to be a host for whatever they're carrying.
Cool.
So really, and so much more with chaga too. And then our third most, I guess, popular mushroom right now is lion's mane. Hiricium erinaceus has nothing to do with the mane of a lion. It's this white stringy fungus, also grows off trees. Most of our functional mushrooms do. And most of the research is for its effect on the neurological system. So there's research on its effect with different neurodegenerative diseases like Parkinson's, Alzheimer's, and dementia. Really incredible, ability to, there's 2 compounds in there that we're seeing. It has the ability to basically activate this hormone called nerve growth factor, which stimulates neuron firing both within the blood-brain barrier and everywhere else in the body. I had a really quick story of lion's mane to give you an idea. We so often think of it as our kind of brain, lion's mane for the brain, right? Focus, productivity, creativity, but it affects neurons everywhere in the body. So in my practice, I worked with, along with kind of the group of people I mentioned earlier, there was also outliers, and some of those were athletes that had different accidents, and they were like, there's no way to fix this. Going to PT, really looking for herbal support. And there was this guy that was a big snowboarder and got in a horrible snowboarding accident and lost all nerve function on the left side of his body. And the only treatment he took was high doses of lion's mane extract and did physical therapy. And after just under 2 years, he had full nerve damage restored.
Wow.
Except for above his left eyebrow due to some scar tissue. But incredible kind of regenerative properties of this lion's mane, which I think we're just at the beginning of really understanding how powerful it can be for so many.
Yeah, I mean, when you were talking about extract, I was really happy that I obtained some coffee, because I thought that I was surprised and pleased that the coffee is like coffee. It's not, and it has the extract in it. The coffee with the probiotic. It has
Yep.
extract in it. So I wasn't sure if I was going to get ground mushroom or what. And I know you have another, let's cover the last mushroom, but I was very also curious about the probiotics in the coffee that I got. So I'll
Yeah.
get to that in a second.
Yeah, I would love to talk about that. Yeah, so those are really our big three, reishi, stress supporting, chaga, immune supporting, full of antioxidant properties, and then lion's mane, kind of our think mushroom. If there was a fourth runner up, it would be cordyceps, which
Right.
is our performance mushroom. So used in the Himalayas, it grows above 13,000 feet. It's been used by Sherpas or mountain climbers to be able to hike to higher altitudes where the oxygen's thinner, and it without having any stimulant. There's no caffeine. It helps to oxygenate our system, which helps us feel a greater sense of energy. So a lot of times pre-workout, it's kind of gotten its fame for, but in my
I've heard of
practice,
that. I've heard of that workout
yeah,
stuff.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So those are kind of maybe the top four, and then we can go to second tier if you want, but those are really the ones to focus on.
Those are the ones the Four Sigmatic mostly uses, correct?
Yep, and most mushroom brands out in the marketplace are really focusing on those four. I think that's
Right.
what we need the most help with is stress, immune support, and productivity.
Well, with the probiotic coffee, I'm just so curious how it survives and reaches your gut.
Yeah, so it's real coffee. I like to think of this product as a 3-in-1. So it's organic, fair trade, single origin Arabica coffee. And then this is the first time we've used probiotics in a product. We're typically really focused on prebiotics. So our philosophy at Four Sigmatic is long-term sustainable solutions for your well-being, not magic pills or quick fixes. And so with that, it's looking at how can we support the root of the body rather than, the limbs, like support where the problems are actually stemming from. And when it comes to gut health, there's so much talk around probiotics
Mm-hmm.
and very little on prebiotics. And I think that's kind of the magic sauce is if you think of our microbiome, right, this incredible ecosystem living in our bodies as a pond, feeding your body that microbiome probiotics is like restocking the pond with fish, but prebiotics are like feeding the fish that are already in the pond,
Mm-hmm.
right? So it's a much more root-based approach. And so in this product, we're really particular that there's both prebiotics and probiotics, plus the functional mushrooms.
Wow.
The prebiotics are mostly coming from this South American root called yacon. And the probiotics, we chose a strain, it's called Bacillus subtilis DE111, and it's actually a heat-resistant strain. And so we chose this particularly because it can survive boiling water for up to 5 minutes, and it can also survive the acidic environment of our stomach. Right. So with probiotics, and prebiotics, we need them to get into our intestinal tract. Where the prebiotics begin to ferment down there and serve as food for the probiotics. And the probiotics have to make their way without being killed, through our digestive system to actually get into this microbiome. So yeah, it's a really cool strain. You can brew coffee in pretty much any way, as long as you're not boiling your coffee for more than 5 minutes, which is pretty rare. Unless you're at altitude and have one of those cool machines that somehow you can boil coffee. There's some in Boulder. But really excited about that product. And of course, beyond the pre and probiotics, there's 2 functional mushrooms. So we put chaga in all of our coffee. Chaga is slightly alkaline forming in the body. So a lot of people will drink our coffee and not get that stomach ache that they get from a regular cup of coffee. Like,
And
wow,
what
this is
about
actually
the coffee crash as well? Do you experience a coffee crash with this?
Yeah, not typically. There's a really incredible thing that happens when you combine adaptogens with stimulants like coffee. So our functional mushrooms are in this broader category called adaptogens. There's both plants and fungi in that category, and they're essentially non-toxic, non-habit forming, non-specific, which we can get into, non-specific natural medicines that are looking to bring more balance into our body, basically help our bodies adapt to stressors. So they give our bodies the tools to more quickly deal with the stressor when it arrives, as well as bring our body back into a state of equilibrium, so we're not stuck in that fight or flight state. And so when we think about where those adaptogens are targeting our body, there's a lot of focus on our adrenals, which is where caffeine and stimulants tax, right? Over time, we tax our adrenals, adrenal fatigue, we're exhausted. So if you think about like a cup, a stimulant pulling, the coffee pulling from draining your adrenal cup, and adaptogens coming back in and tonifying and filling that cup, the outward experience of that is we don't get a crash or jitters.
Right. This is
Right?
very important.
It's very important, especially, yeah, I mean, coffee is not good or bad, right? It's all about balance and the right amount. And yet so many of us, while we love coffee, we hate the stomach ache, the crash, the jitters. And so whether it's our products or something else, I definitely recommend considering adding adaptogens into whatever caffeinated beverage you drink.
Huh. And into this society today where everybody seems to be experiencing adrenal fatigue or something stressful, and everybody's addicted to coffee pretty much. So regular coffee.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I mean, do you consider the packets of lion's mane and the probiotic coffee, is it just coffee? Or because I was referring to it as coffee alternative, but maybe it's just coffee.
Yeah, mushroom coffee, adaptogen coffee. You're a better for you cup of coffee. The biggest misconception is that there is no coffee in it, and
Right.
there is. Coffee, as I mentioned, coffee is actually where Americans get the most antioxidants of any other food source, which is not necessarily positive. It kind of shows how few fruits and vegetables we're actually eating. But coffee in itself, it's that deep black color, really big on having our population eat more black foods. There's so many antioxidants and benefits in black foods: coffee, chaga, black olives, black sesame seeds, really underrated category. But so we do use real,
Black beans, I'm assuming that's an easy one.
Yeah, black beans, black olives. We often hear eat the rainbow, and so it's a really basic suggestion. But yeah, with coffee, we do use coffee, especially in our instant. The idea, that was our first product that we launched before the ground coffee, was, I like to say, half calf, double the benefits. So there's 50 milligrams of caffeine in a full cup, which is about half the amount as a regular cup of coffee. And yet, beyond the benefits, where you don't have to experience many of the typical side effects with coffee, we're really trying to look at why people are drinking that cup of coffee in the first place, and really hone in on that. So our best-selling coffee is with lion's mane. Right? Most of us wake up and have a cup of coffee to sit at our computer, to be more productive, to turn on our minds. And so rather than just flooding the body with this rush of caffeine, let's actually focus that coffee towards the place of the body that we would like it to go, right? Towards that productivity.
Right. Wow. I don't know if you read the email I sent Katie, but I first came into contact with the packets of lion's mane when I was I had a vegan company I was working for a long time, and the big investors had this big office, and all the guys in the office were all dressed in suits. And in the middle of summer, they turned the air conditioning up, so it was like a meat freezer in there, and all the women were like freezing and wearing scarves. And we had this lion's mane coffee in our cabinets. I don't believe we had them in our stores, but so we would always be like holding a hot cup of this coffee that we loved, while we had space heaters under our desks and like sweaters in our laps, and we just couldn't wait. We couldn't wait to get the lion's mane coffee. And all the guys were, a little like turning their noses up at it. I mean, they were the investors. They were not your typical clientele for what we were selling, the organic
Mm-hmm.
vegan. So do you get more men, or is there like male female sort of equivalents as far as uh, the attention given to your products, or do you find that women are more open to force?
Yeah, it's shifted. When we started, it was a group of these 5 Finnish dudes that came over from to the States in 2015. So they'd been hustling Four Sigmatic in Finland for 3 years. And there was a lot more, the early adopters were the biohackers and it's like trendsetters that's definitely skewed more male. And over the past couple years, that shift has kind of flipped, and our customers are about 70% female.
Huh,
And I don't know if that's like the women are buying groceries for the family or just more open to, perhaps an alternative. And
yeah. I speak for myself when I say mothers are very focused on staying healthy because they really do have to fill their cup first before
yes,
whether it's breastfeed a baby or just take care of the children, if they can't be sick.
yeah,
Mothers cannot be sick.
absolutely.
So, if this is, a healthy alternative to another habit, then women might do it a little bit more, might be in charge of filling the cabinets more than the men. I would
Yeah.
totally do that. Yeah.
Yeah, and that busyness of moms is such an important thing to note. It's hard when someone's either super busy or super stressed to say, try this new thing, and you have to do it every day to see results when it's something they've never heard of or involves an ingredient like, lion's mane, and they're like, what the heck is that? And with adaptogens, with functional mushrooms, you need to be consistent with them. Really, the benefits are seen when they're taken every day. They're called tonics, right? They're not a one-time fix. And so that's, another big part of our philosophy is we'll never make pills or tinctures, or we look at daily staples. Like, what are these parts of routines that aren't going anywhere? Something in the morning, whether it's coffee or matcha, protein shake in the middle of the day, something sweet to unwind, skincare, right? We've created edible skincare. Like, what are these habits, and how can we almost embed them with the most nutrient dense ingredients to make it so easy to feel better without having to change much of what you already do?
It's so important, and I'm very sleep deprived as well because I'm right now sharing a room with my toddler, who's
Mm.
up at night, and I definitely I used to this is probably the least I've ever taken care of myself. So I'm just really glad to have discovered this, because I was sensitive to the regular coffee. I would drink barely any in the morning, and now I'm definitely motivated to get more mushrooms in my diet. And but how does it feel to be helping make the world a better place?
Oh, well, I'm so glad you found our products. And it's just so important. We have so many allies in the plant world, in the fungal world, that are natural, that are safe, that are time tested, that we've been using and relying on for literally thousands of years. And we've forgotten a lot of that. And so it's really easy to feel totally bogged down and alone and like there's no answers. And I feel like what we're doing at Four Sigmatic, and me as an herbalist, is just being a bridge to remember that we have so much available to us, and it doesn't have to be hard. It doesn't have to be disgusting or,
Right,
taste horrible. It can be a really beautiful, delicious part of your daily routine. And it works,
right.
so yeah, I think
Yeah,
we need it.
that's wonderful. This is another question. I was wondering if you got tired of people joking or mentioning hallucinogenic mushrooms.
I love that you bring this up. I think it's one of the things that have prohibited mushrooms from taking a bigger
Mm,
spotlight in a more serious way in our country is the fear of bringing up poisonous mushrooms, psychedelic mushrooms. Like, what are they actually talking about? And this is something at Four Sigmatic that we heavily lean into. Our tasting cups say on shrooms. Our hashtag is everyday magic. And we want to be really accessible, really friendly. Like, everything is on the table. There isn't education around mycology in pretty much any systems of education. And so we want to be that resource, your friendly neighbor, to say, are these psychedelic? And then learn, no, but they're functional and they are safe and they're legal in every country. Thanks for asking, and then we can actually get to the meat of what we're talking about, rather than this kind of dancing around this like, oh my gosh, what's actually going on here? So
Right. That's a great point.
yeah, leaning into stereotypes feels important as part of making these accessible and part of the education.
Right. That totally, I love that. That makes so much sense. So speaking of everyday magic, what a wonderful hashtag. Somebody introduced me to, do you know Dr. Richard Allen Miller?
I don't. Uh-uh.
He wrote the Magical Mushroom Handbook. I have not read it.
Wow.
Yeah. And how they are used in ritual. And I just watched something with him, and he said that we are 10% human and 90% bacteria, molds, and a hierarchy of organisms in your gut that gives you a sense of instinct. And then he relates that to ESP and magic.
I love it.
Isn't that great? I
Yes.
wanted to bring that up to you, speaking of magic. And then there was one thing, I was watching tarot, and something he said was their consciousness of higher beings, and this is not probably a direct quote. So I was wondering what you thought he meant by consciousness of higher beings, mushrooms.
They are. When we look at the mycelial network, which is the majority of the mushroom species. So when we talk about mushrooms, it's actually only the fruit. It's called the fruiting body. So think of that like the apple on the tree, but the majority of the species lives underground or within trees, within other root systems. We actually know that over 90% of plants on Earth have this mycelial network within them. So these plants are dependent on the symbiotic relationship of the fungi to survive. And it's we need another hour and a half to talk about mycelium, but it is incredibly fascinating what this conscious network is capable of. It's often called the wood wide web or nature's internet. I think of it as the nervous system of the planet. So every step we're walking on planet Earth, this mycelial network is underneath us and conscious, responding to different messages, whether it's being aware that a tree that it's in symbiotic relationship with is deficient in a certain nutrient. That mycelial network can search, literally grows off of, it's made of what are called hyphal threads. So they're these tube-like threads that are constantly exchanging both nutrients and information throughout the forest floor to keep ecosystems alive. They're just, so we're very even fresh on the research that we're finding what their potential is. But some of the really cool, fascinating studies are using them to create quick pathways. So for example, wanting to know in a building what the most efficient way to create the fire escape would be, they'll emulate that with a petri dish of mycelium running, we call it, when mycelium spreads, and they'll find the quickest, most efficient route from point A to B. There's whole subway systems in Asia that have been designed around mycelial networks and
Wow.
efficient pathways. Yeah, they're, so phenomenal. And then beyond that, just for the planet, we're finding they're the only natural species that can break down a lot of toxins on Earth, whether it's heavy metals or plastics. It's a whole art and science called mycoremediation. We're using mycelium as alternatives for all sorts of materials, from leather. There's a really cool company in San Francisco making leather-based products out of mycelium, packaging material like styrofoam. There's a company out of Boulder that's making meat out of mycelium called Meaty. So I think we're really just on the brink of this whole fungal kingdom taking
Sounds
off.
amazing. It makes me realize that the Smurfs were really on to something. Okay, great. Well, one final question. Well, thank you so much just for joining me and helping people cultivate this strong foundation to their health. And I was going to ask you if you could give your 20-year-old self some health advice, what would you say?
Start taking mushrooms and adaptogens every day. It seems so simple, but it's remembering that we have so many herbal and fungal allies, and just to start, you know, you can pick one. We call it a simple. So just pick one thing to start with, whether it's reishi or ashwagandha. Those are two of the safest, no matter what state your body is in. And just commit to that one thing every day for at least a couple weeks, and note how your body changes. And I think feeling is believing. So we can read as much as we want or listen and watch all these things, but really bringing the medicine into your own body and feeling how your body is shifting with it, I think is the most profound education.
Great advice for young people as they're figuring out, you know, how to become stronger and healthy in mind, body, and spirit. Definitely. Yeah. Thank you so much for talking to me about all of this. This is just wonderful information. And check out Magical Mushroom Handbook.